Hello everyone, and welcome to something a little different. Not quite your normal content, or rather, my normal content here. Today, I'd like to talk about something that I've been working on. You may have heard mention that I am working on at least a couple of different novels, ranging from quite literally children's stories to young adult novel to, more mature novels. And I just happened to have an idea this past week that really stuck in my mind. Something that I felt the need to get out on paper, or rather in this case, get it out on pixels. What I ended up doing is I developed this idea. In my head, I had a picture of a character in a particular situation, and I just let my imagination run from that point. And I ended up developing what I feel is going to be a pretty compelling story, at least out of all of the ones that I am currently working on anyway. But this one, instead of keeping it to myself, I thought I'd present it a little bit. I know I've shared with a few individuals that some of my previous works. This one, I really kind of like the quote-unquote end product. This is by no means a definite, yes, this is going to come out sometime soon. This is more or less me having a bit of fun, seeing if an idea goes anywhere. I am interested in a lot of different genres, whether it's cyberpunk to western to fantasy, or even detective novels. But this one, it borrows from two primary sources. There's a 1980s Rutger Hauer film with also Matthew Broderick and Michelle Pfeiffer called Ladyhawke. I won't spoil that, but needless to say, this story borrows some ideas, but by no means is it going to follow the same plot. But it is inspired by it, to say the least. The other portion, I spent so many years purposely avoiding it, until, of course, my film professor made me watch the first episode and then an episode in the second season. But Game of Thrones, I watched that. Now, of course, I don't mean to go on and say, yes, this is going to be Game of Thrones, because I really hate those sorts of hyperbolic statements. This is Game of Thrones in the sense that I am pulling a little bit from the War of the Roses. I want to get a bit more of the political intrigue and all the fun stuff therein. Also adds that I'm playing through Final Fantasy Tactics, which itself is also based on the War of the Roses. And that's particularly a period of history that I have not delved too far into. So it's as much going to be a discovery process and learning process as it is a story development process. But I knew where I wanted to start with it. And so I used one of my favorite writing tools. You may not consider it a writing tool, but for me, it really helps solidify my writing in a sense that I can see the end product. Normally, as far as I know, a lot of writers, you're the only one who's reading it. You're reading it in your own voice. Maybe you're thinking of a different voice in your head. But for long stretches of time, you're only hearing your own words in your own voice. And when you've got a little bit of an imposter complex, well, you might not think it's very good. So with the rise of quote-unquote AI technologies, there have been various services such as 11 Labs that use voice synthesis to allow you to turn text into what sounds remarkably like human speech. For years, my brother and I, we messed with text-to-speech on our computer, Microsoft SAM, etc. But this is a whole nother ballgame. Now, I understand AI, it's very likely going to take away voice acting jobs. Totally understand that. But this is not me monetizing any sort of voices. And also, I'm not using anyone's actual voice. I'm using the pre-generated ones that are available on 11 Labs. And these voices, some of them are pretty good. And they've been developing and adding more over the last few months. When I first started using them for a bit of my creative process, there was maybe 5 or 6 different voices, and I've quickly started hearing them in a lot of YouTube shorts and other locations, and I'm like, I can't unhear that now, because I know that they're using 11 Labs. But they've added in several different British voices, a few different Australian voices, even a couple of Irish voices, and they are spanning different genres and different reading formats. If you need a news story read out, you can get a news story read out. And again, yes, I know. It's like Bad News Bears. That is like a big no-no going forward. We don't want that. We want real people reading things. However, I think just like using a resource like ChatGPT, on like personal level, it can be a good tool to help along a process. I used it in one of my classes. We came up with an idea for a play and had it generate a story. It was a pretty wacky and hilarious story, to say the least, but the results were pretty cool. So rather than having myself read it, I had a voice from 11 Labs read my prologue. And again, this is a very, very brief idea. An idea that just popped into my head like Wednesday, and by last night I had it fully written out and thought it was in a pretty good place. Of course, there's always editing. The editing never stops. Until it's published, the editing just keeps going and going and going and going. So everything here is subject to change. In fact, it's very likely that this won't even become an actual thing, but hey, let's turn it into content. So what you're about to listen to is about 11 minutes of a prologue to a novel that is tentatively titled Of Twilight and Moonshade. No, there are no sparkly vampires, but ravens are involved. So if you could go ahead and leave me any feedback down below, that'd be fantastic. Whether you hate it, whether you love it, or you think I should just move on and shove it, or just like and subscribe, that works too. Got a long way to 1K. See you on the other side. Just kidding, I won't.
In the relentless grip of the tempest, all vestiges of his once unyielding composure shattered, yielding to the on-rushing torrents that veiled the mournful expression. Amidst the tumult, his gaze remained fixed upon the still warm figure, the sole soul he had truly connected with. In the wake of the tempest's fury, a tempest of emotions surged within him. His heart, once a sanctuary of shared dreams and whispered confidences, now echoed with the haunting absence of her presence. The world around him seemed to blur, the roaring winds echoing the chaos within. With trembling hands, he reached out as if to touch the fleeting warmth that lingered upon her lifeless form. His fingers hovered above her still features, yearning for a connection that could never be rekindled. Confusion and disbelief danced in his eyes, mirroring the enigma of her sudden departure. A gnawing ache clenched at his chest, a mix of grief and frustration as he grappled with the incomprehensible reality before him. The sight of her fragile body, so full of life just moments ago, now silenced by an unseen force, left him grappling for words that simply wouldn't come. He wanted to demand answers from the heavens, to challenge fate itself, but words felt feeble against the enormity of his loss. He sank to his knees beside her, the rain-dampened earth seeping through the fabric of his trousers. His fingers brushed against the back of her hand, seeking solace in the touch that once brought comfort beyond measure. Memories flooded his mind, a cascade of shared laughter, stolen glances, and cherished moments that now felt like the fragments of a shattered reality. In the face of the inexplicable, his thoughts whirled like the storm that had raged moments before, each gust echoing the torment within him. How could life's fragile thread be severed so abruptly, leaving him with nothing but an ache that seemed insurmountable? As the rain continued to fall, mingling with his tears, he bowed his head in a gesture of surrender to the unfathomable forces that had stolen her away. The unanswered questions hung heavy in the air, a silent reminder of the mysteries that life sometimes presented, leaving him to navigate the uncharted territory of a world forever altered by her absence. Unbeknownst to all but a select few, the man now lost in the depths of grief had not only been her confidant, but her sworn protector. Clad in armor that gleamed like silver under the stormy skies, he had stood guard over her with a devotion that transcended his duty. Bound by an unspoken promise, he had shielded her from both visible and hidden threats, his heart a fortress that sheltered her from the world's tumultuous tides. Their love had blossomed in the shadows, a clandestine affair woven within the threads of courtly life. Behind the pomp and grandeur of the palace halls, stolen glances had spoken volumes, and stolen moments had sealed their fate. Their shared laughter was a melody that only they could hear, their whispered conversations a secret language that bound them together in a world where propriety dictated otherwise. The princess, with her regal grace and noble spirit, had seen in the knight's eyes a reflection of her own desires, a desire for a love unburdened by titles and expectations. And in his eyes, she saw a sanctuary from the pressures of her royal lineage, a place where she could simply be herself. Underneath the moonlit nights, they had stolen away to secret alcoves, the world fading into insignificance as their hearts beat in unison. It was in the quiet spaces that their love truly flourished, away from the prying eyes of courtiers and advisors who would never understand the depth of their connection. But now, as raindrops continued to fall and mingle with his tears, he realized that the kingdom had lost more than just a loyal knight. In the hidden corners of his heart, he mourned the loss of the woman who had been his equal, his confidant, and his silent love. The weight of their secret love now bore down upon him, the knowledge that he alone had witnessed the radiant soul of the princess unguarded and genuine. As he knelt by her side, his armor tarnished by rain and sorrow, he whispered promises to the wind that carried his words away into the storm. Promises to protect her memory, to honor their love, even if it remained eternally hidden from the world. At that moment, the secret bond that had united them seemed to linger in the air, a bittersweet reminder of a love that had defied boundaries and flourished in the most unexpected of places. As the rain continued to fall, its rhythm a mournful echo of his thoughts, the knight's gaze remained fixed on the princess's lifeless form. The weight of responsibility bore down on him like the heavy burden of his armor. He knew that he couldn't hide the truth, not from the kingdom that looked to him as her protector, nor from himself. With a heavy heart, he knew that he had to explain what had occurred. But as the clouds above rumbled with thunder, a storm brewed within him as well. He understood the gravity of his situation, the whispers that could spread like wildfire, casting blame upon him for her sudden demise. The unknown aneurysm that had stolen her life might be attributed to his inability to protect her, a stain on his honor that he couldn't bear. Torn between facing a potential injustice and escaping an unjust fate, he stood at the precipice of a decision that would alter the course of his life. To stay would mean confronting the accusations that could tarnish his reputation, potentially leading to a fate worse than death. To flee, on the other hand, was to abandon the kingdom that he had sworn to protect, to leave behind a legacy of loyalty and love that would forever remain untold. The princess's face, now serene in death, seemed to gaze upon him with an understanding that only deepened his turmoil. The silent bond they had shared urged him to take action, to find the courage to reveal the truth and defend their love, even if it meant standing alone against the storm of accusations. As the rain's intensity ebbed, a newfound determination rose within him. He would not forsake his duty, nor would he allow their love to be reduced to mere whispers and suspicions. With a resolve that mirrored the strength he had shown as her protector, he knelt by her side and gently brushed his fingers against her cheek. With a deep breath, he turned away from her lifeless form and set his gaze upon the castle that loomed in the distance, a symbol of the world he was prepared to face. The choice was his, to face the storm of judgment with a steadfast heart, or to embark on a journey into the unknown, carrying their secret love with him like a torch that could never be extinguished. The path was uncertain, but as the knight stood at the crossroads, he felt the weight of a decision that would define his legacy. With a heavy heart and a resolute mind, the knight made his decision. He knew that his beloved princess would never wish for him to suffer unjustly in the aftermath of her passing. He couldn't allow her memory to be marred by rumors or misjudgments. As the rain began to subside, he turned away from the castle and back to the lifeless figure before him. Gently, he gathered her in his arms, cradling her with a tenderness that spoke of his unwavering love. With each step, he made his way to a secluded glade, a place where the sunlight filtered through the leaves, painting a canvas of serenity. It was there, under the open sky, that he resolved to give her the dignified farewell she deserved. In the soft earth, he dug a grave with his own hands, each movement a testament to the devotion he held for the woman who had captured his heart. As the first rays of dawn cast a golden hue over the landscape, he laid her to rest, his fingers brushing against her cheek one last time. Tears mingled with the earth as he whispered his final goodbye, a promise that he would forever hold her memory close. Next to her resting place, he left a message, a declaration of what had truly transpired on that fateful day. With quill and parchment, he penned the story of their secret love, the moments they had shared, and the unexpected tragedy that had befallen her. He explained the unknown ailment that had stolen her away, a cause of death as inexplicable to him as it was to the kingdom. He knew that his actions would be seen as treasonous, that his departure from the castle walls and his unorthodox handling of her burial would be viewed with suspicion. But his oath to protect her had ended with her life, and he could not bear the thought of continuing to serve a kingdom that might cast doubt upon her memory. As he stood before the grave, the wind carrying his message away like a whispered secret, he knew that his path was now one of solitude and uncertainty. Branded a traitor, he would wander the world with the weight of his love and his actions resting upon his shoulders. Yet, in his heart, he carried the knowledge that he had honored her in the best way he could, by preserving the purity of their love, even in the face of adversity. And so, with a final look back at the princess's resting place, the knight set forth on a journey that would be as much a search for his own redemption as it would be a quest to keep alive the flame of a love that had defied conventions and transcended time itself.